Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Actions in GPTs, Developer Tips, Tricks, and Techniques. My name is Matt Brown, and I'll be your moderator today. One of my main jobs at SingleStore is to organize weekly AI webinars, 2 per week, demoing data and AI use cases and new tools and new technologies. I post about our upcoming webinars every week, so if these topics are interesting to you, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn to stay in the loop. I also love to hear your feedback or any ideas on topics that you'd like to see in future sessions. Speaking of future sessions, on Wednesday, we will be presenting how to build a no-code stock analyzer agent with LLM function calling. You can come see how to use no-code platforms alongside LLMs to analyze the stock market without writing a single line of code. This is very, very cool. I just saw this demo on Friday, and if you can imagine, it's kind of like ChatGPT. You type in stuff, and you can have it'll open up a window inside the product, and it'll start navigating the internet on your behalf and taking actions on your behalf. It's very, very cool, kind of like an insight into the future, I think. So hopefully you're interested in that too, and we'll see you there on Wednesday. I'll put this tiny URL link in the chat in just a few minutes, or you can take a photo or a screenshot of this QR code, which will take you to the same place. All right, back to today's topic. You are welcome to participate in the discussion throughout the session using the Zoom Q&A button at the bottom of your console. We have an internal mission statement to try to answer 100% of audience questions. That has gotten harder and harder over time now that we have thousands of registrants at each webinar, sometimes hundreds of questions that come in, but we are up to the challenge. So ask away. We will either answer today interactively or during the live Q&A after the demo, or we will follow up with you via email. So keep the questions coming. Make sure you include your name and email address in the questions. We will not be answering anonymous questions. We would also love for you to try out today's technology. In fact, anyone who tries it today will be entered for a chance to win the latest new AirPods Pros. All you need to do is click the link. It's on your screen right now. It's the tiny URL Actions in GPTs raffle. I'll put that link in the chat in a minute. Or if you
I think Matt, you cut out there for a second.
Okay, let me know if it happens again. I'll turn off my. Thanks.
Okay.
We have also announced a new free shared tier. Not a free trial, a free tier. No payment obligations, and you can still get the functions of the core SingleStore database engine. And all you have to do is click this link and log in, create an account. If you already have an account, you can activate the free tier. But just logging into the product today will register you for the AirPods raffle. All right, let me introduce our speakers for today. As I mentioned, my name is Matt Brown. I'm the head of growth at SingleStore DB. I have the pleasure of organizing these weekly AI webinars to show the world what's possible with a general purpose database with vector capabilities, robust vector capabilities. We have upcoming webinars on AI agents, on Google Gemini Ultra, on private RAG chatbots, and a lot more. As I mentioned, connect with me on LinkedIn to stay up to date on all of those in the future weeks. And then, of course, the real star of our show is Ayush Pai. Ayush is a computer science student at Georgia Tech. I found him online after he created some viral AI demos that I thought were really cool. Since then, we have partnered with him on a few projects that demonstrate the power of SingleStore for AI purposes. We can get started today with a quick overview of SingleStore. I'll keep this very short. Why do we call it the perfect solution for real-time AI? Well, SingleStore is a distributed database system that can handle both transactions and analytics in the same engine. Years ago, this was really great for high power and data-intensive applications that needed both speed and scale. So we like to use a fraud detection example. If you can imagine with the big banks, we have several of those as our clients. Big banks lot of volume happening, transactions happening, and in a fraud detection example, there might be a credit card swipe, and in milliseconds, that application needs to process that, understand the account balance, understand the transaction history, typical user behavior, location, blah, 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 and process all of that and make a decision on whether to release the funds. So that moment is very, very important. And the application must handle all that data quickly, no lags, or it can fail in its decision engine, and that's really bad for the user. You're either out of money or you have an unhappy customer, or both. So anyways, that is what SingleStore was kind of positioned to handle few years ago, and also back in our MemSQL days. SingleStore was originally MemSQL. But then back in 2017, something very important and fortuitous happened. One of our financial services customers really pushed us to develop our vector capabilities. We did that. We have further honed those capabilities over the years. Suddenly the AI boom arrived, whatever that was, a year or two ago, and that has been awesome for SingleStore. So now we've got that MemSQL, or sorry, MySQL compatible architecture that can handle streaming data ingestion, analytics, and transactions, all in the same engine. We've got the multi-model capabilities. We can handle all of these. You can see along the right-hand side, JSON, time series, full text, vector data. So, I'll sum this all up to say, if you really like something like Mongo's simplicity of handling JSON documents, but you don't like its speed or performance with real-time analytics, SingleStore has an API for that. Just Google SingleStore Kai Mongo API. You can get all of the speed that you want, no code changes. Also, if you like the power of a data warehouse like Snowflake to handle large-scale BI analytics, but you don't like Snowflake's prices or slower speeds, SingleStore has you covered for that. We have a great connector. Again, if you like the MySQL SQL syntax, but you don't like MySQL's laggy performance, SingleStore can have you covered. So anyways, I may be biased, but I think it's an incredible product, perfect for real-time AI use cases. You can see at the bottom of this slide here that we're available on AWS, GCP, Azure, and on premises. A lot of our customers do some sort of hybrid approach, or something in the cloud, and we can handle all of that. So I hope I kept it brief. I'll hand it over to the star of the show, Ayush. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Just give me a second here to share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, awesome. So thank you for that great introduction, Matt. So my name is Ayush Pai, and I'm a CS student currently at Georgia Tech. And today's webinar is all about, this new thing called GPT actions, right? And we'll get all into that. But the first thing that we're going to do is just go over like a brief introduction of some of the technology we're using today. One of them is just GPT. So what is GPT exactly? GPT is kind of like a paradigm shifting architectural marvel, right? It's really deeply rooted in transformer-based models. And it's really revolutionizing the field of natural language processing. I'm sure all of you at this point have probably tried out, ChatGPT, Bard, one of those large language models, and really been impressed with kind of like the technology and how it can really meticulously give these responses based on your queries. Its architecture is based on, extensive pre-training of extensive corpus of textual data. GPT acquires intrinsic understanding of intricate language structures and really semantics by laying a robust foundation for its exceptional capabilities. What truly distinguishes GPT is kind of its inherent ability to really answer these questions by actually like, so what GPT is doing on the back end, right, is it's excelling with these NLP domains by encompassing a lot of these different areas of like text generation, translation, question answering tasks. And this ability really underscores its significance in diverse applications, from like bolstering multilingual communication to fostering human-like interactions with AI systems. And throughout this webinar, we'll explore like GPT's architecture, delve into its rigorous training methodologies, and really explain how this leads to kind of the GPT actions and how that was going to be integrating into these custom GPTs that are being built today. If you guys have checked out the GPT's plugin store or the GPT store, where you can explore GPTs from other companies, or you can create your own GPTs, as we'll be going into today as well. So before we get into that, though, let's go into like kind of the general history of generative transformers, because this is a pretty new field overall, right? It marks a new, really profound evolution in the field of natural language processing. So NLP has been around for a long time. It's been a field that's been developing, but this field really got groundbreaking. And the groundbreaking revolution of this field really was first with the paper "Attention is All You Need," which really introduced the conventional transformer model that's used in most of these large language models. And it kind of upended like the basic NLP approaches with its efficient attention mechanism that really allowed for processing sequential data. The pivotal moment really laid the groundwork for subsequent innovations. In 2018, we saw BERT, which is bidirectional encoder representations from Transformers, and this was made by Google. And it was a groundbreaking model that could significantly enhance contextual understanding in language by leveraging bidirectional training. BERT's introduction really marked a quantum leap in text comprehension, text generation, and all these generation benchmarks that we see today kind of started with BERT. And it really set a new standard in this field of NLP. The same year, or maybe a year later, around in 2019, OpenAI unveiled GPT, which is, as you know today as ChatGPT, but it started off as GPT-1, and it kind of showcased the formidable capabilities of transformer-based models in generating coherent and contextually relevant text. And GPT's debut really signaled a paradigm shift, kind of demonstrating the potential of pre-trained models and NLP tasks without really having to do, very task-specific fine-tuning, and creating these generalized models. Since then, the trajectory of generative transformers have been really characterized by continuous innovation. We've had GPT-2, GPT-3, and 3.5 and 4 that we're currently at. And we've had, many new technologies within these different models introduced. And one of them that we're going to be talking today is GPT actions. So again, like in 2017, we had this paper called "Attention is All You Need." And this really heralded the transformative era in natural language processing. The paper really eliminated the need for recurrent layers, traditionally used in NLP tasks, and paved the way for more efficient and effective language processing. And central to this novel approach was really, the Transformers innovation of actually using the self-attention mechanism, which is a novel approach that really allow the model to weigh in the importance of different words within a sentence, and thereby enhancing its understanding of contextual relationships. This self-attention mechanism is really how really revolutionized how models process sequential data, enabling them to really capture long range dependencies and more effectively than traditional recurrent architectures that really notably, the transformer self-attention mechanism significantly improved both the training speed and the accuracy of language models, really making it a paradigm shift in NLP research. So we go to the next one, expand a little bit more on BERT. So this was kind of like a monumental leap forward in natural language processing. Again, BERT really revolutionized context understanding by really this bidirectional training model that allowed it to analyze text in both directions. And this approach really enabled BERT to capture deeper contextual relationships, leading to more profound and improvements in NLP tasks. And again, in 2018, we had OpenAI releasing GPT, and notably their pre-training phase equipped GPT with a robust foundation and really empowering it to generate coherent and contextually relevant text. Notably, GPT showcased with exceptional performance across spectrum of NLP tasks, including translation, question answering, text completion without the need for task-specific adjustments. Very generalized model here. And this versatility really highlighted GPT's adaptability and underscored its significance in advancing the capabilities of AI-driven language processing systems that were kind of marking the paradigm shift in the field of NLP, kind of paving the way for more sophisticated and versatile generative models capable of addressing a diverse array of language-related challenges. So currently we have GPT-2, GPT-3, and GPT-4. And the evolution and scaling of these models kind of showcases the exponential growth. GPT-5 is slated to release sometime this year. But we see that GPT-2 had 1.5 billion training parameters, and GPT-3 had 175 billion, right? This kind of really shows how this is increasing in terms of its contextual understanding, and further advancements with GPT-4. And you can only imagine what comes next, right? And you can see a really good enhancement in these models in terms of their benchmark scores. And across versions, GPT models have kind of expanded AI's role in text generation, translation, content creation, given many more roles in terms of even like coding assistance. I'm sure a lot of you developers have used GPT models or Copilot, ChatGPT for coding assistance, and it really shows like the evolving level of capabilities GPT models have. And that really takes us into kind of some of OpenAI's featured expansions, right? So it started off with in with the release of GPT 3.5 in November 30th, 2022. OpenAI really introduced a significant shift by unveiling ChatGPT, which was kind of like a web-based interface that enhanced accessibility for all types of users, and really usability overall. And this really marked a departure from just solely AI, API-driven interactions that were kind of with GPT-1 and GPT-2, as well as GPT-3. And continuing from this trajectory, November 6, 2023, OpenAI had their dev day, and they unveiled a suite of new features, including GPT-4 Vision API. I've done a couple of webinars on that. They enhanced, some existing features of the GPT models, but most notably, OpenAI introduced the Assistance API and this GPT store. And Assistance API is kind of like allowing for development of, customized AI assistants. And then these custom GPTs through GPT actions and the GPT stores really empowers users to tailor, GPT models to specific applications and tasks without requiring too much code or any code at all in some cases. These advancements really signify OpenAI's commitment to really expanding the capabilities and accessibility of GPT technology, really enabling diverse and innovative applications, across various domains, right? Sorry. Okay, so GPTs, explaining what GPTs are. So basically, they're customizable variants of ChatGPT, right? They're designed for specific tasks or topics. Users can tailor GPTs by, combining instructions, knowledge, and capabilities by really making them adaptable to a wide range of applications, whether for, language learning, technical support, or any other domain. GPTs really offer, flexibility, versatility. They can really range from, simple configurations to complex setups, including like, many different examples here. We have this, creative writing watch, laundry buddy. There's many different GPTs already in the GPT store. And in essence, the GPTs empower users to harness the power of AI-driven natural language processing for these tailored solutions, allowing them to tailor to their specific needs or objectives. And that brings me to the GPT store, right? This is a platform where users and developers can really create and publish customized GPTs, and for integration directly in the ChatGPT interface. So GPTs offer a unique way to tailor ChatGPT for specific purposes, right? Allows users to address various tasks and domain with enhanced precision and efficiency. By leveraging the GPT store, companies can seamlessly integrate their technology directly with GPT, and it provides the users direct access to these specialized capabilities within the ChatGPT interface. So that's kind of marks the difference between, just the API and that GPT store. That when using the API, you would integrate it directly into your technology, but when using the GPT store, you're actually using GPT's technology, and then, doing like a post request or a get request to your technology, and then integrating it there using some sort of schema, which we'll get into later, right? So this integration streamlines workflows and really enhances user experiences by offering a wide range of specialized functionalities within a unified platform. So whether for language learning, technical support, content creation, or any other application that you wish to develop, the GPT Store really empowers both users and businesses to leverage the power of AI. And this natural language processing that really GPT kind of excels in a customizable and accessible manner. So, sorry, give me a second. So to create your first GPT, your first custom GPT, right? Um, the process is pretty simple. The process to get set up is pretty simple, right? So the first step is to navigate to the OpenAI platform. And one disclaimer, it's a very unfortunate disclaimer, but hopefully it'll be different soon. You can only create these custom GPTs and actions if you have a premium GPT like subscription, which is $20 a month. Hopefully in the future, OpenAI will allow all users to create these, but currently you need to have the ChatGPT Plus subscription. So once you have that, then you can navigate to the OpenAI platform. So you can start by opening your web browser and going to ChatGPT. You go to /GPT/editor, and this will take you directly to the editor where all the magic begins. So first you would notice you have to select your account name, and you would have to create your okay, sorry, not your account name. Sorry, you would have to select your name of the GPT, and you can open up this tab that called My GPTs. And I'll show you guys this interface. It's a little bit hard to explain just with words, but this really is your personal space for managing and creating all these custom AI models that are, using GPT. So once you're ready to begin, you click Create a GPT, and this will, as you can see on the screen, you have two different tabs here. You have a Create and Configure. So creating allows you to directly interact with ChatGPT and telling them directly what you would want to make, right? So in this case, some examples here is make a creative who helps generate visuals for new products, or make a software engineer that can help format my code. That's how you can directly interact with ChatGPT to make something pretty custom in terms of your own GPT, right? So creating a custom GPT, you can also have, instructions, right? And so instructions are part of like a four part way of describing and configuring your GPT here. So in the configure tab, you have where you define the core attributes of your GPT. So you begin with naming the GPT, which is kind of like what a user would search for, or what a user would be interacting with and looking at for the specific name of your GPT. So you would name it, and it can be like a formal title, or it could be capturing its essence in any way. Next, move on to the description field. Here, you would concisely articulate the purpose of your GPT, and really, explain like what makes it unique, and then what the GPT should be doing, what it should avoid doing, and what it should be doing in different situations. And that's kind of like instructions telling GPT how to customize itself to your specific task here. The last step is to provide the conversation starters, and these are prompts that kind of exemplify typical interactions between a user and your custom GPT. And they kind of serve as examples of the GPT's capabilities and help users understand the kind of responses that they can expect. And remember, each element here contributes to the user's understanding and experience of your custom GPT. So it's clarity and precisions are really key in this part. Um, so the next step is the configuration, and the knowledge section is a powerful feature that allows you to directly upload documents and directly relevant to your GPT's domain. These documents could be like manuals, articles, any text that you want your GPT to learn from. and ensure its responses are, informed and accurate. Under capabilities, you can equip your GPT with various tools to enhance its functionality. For instance, it can enable web browsing, which allows it to fetch and refer to live internet data. DALL-E grants us to its ability to, ability to generate images. And the code interpreter makes it possible for GPT to really understand and process programming code. And so select the capabilities that best align with your GPT's intended use. That's the purpose of the capabilities there. And lastly, the actions is where you can extend your GPT's capabilities and to really integrate third-party APIs. And this is where the magic really comes in, right? Because this could be anything from a weather service to a data analysis tool to your own website, to your own company's website that can serve users directly on the GPT website in the GPT store. By customizing these actions, you really allow your GPT to really interact with, external services and provide more dynamic responses, really find tailored towards your specific use case. And each option you select or upload really kind of fine tunes the performance of your GPT to give it a better understanding and give it better serve its intended purpose for your GPT. So what are GPT actions? Now this is where we get into the specifics of how we're making the schema. So GPT actions are a transformative feature that enables your custom GPT to really interact dynamically with the world beyond just the text-based responses, right? So by configuring these actions, your GPT can reach out and pull external data, connect to databases, integrate with your email system, or even just assist in online shopping tasks. Anything where you can do HTTP request and do some sort of authentication. This functionality is really achieved through the API integrations, which act as its bridges between your GPT and other softwares. So when setting up your actions, it's really crucial to define the schema. This is essentially the blueprint that really outlines how GPT communicates with this external API. So you should be adhering in this case to the Open API specification. If you guys don't know what that is, I can explain a little bit more about that if you have any questions. But the Open API specification is kind of like a way of standardizing how you're sending these requests to an external API, and that's direct, and that's what OpenAI is using for their schema. And you could be doing GET requests for retrieving data, POST requests for sending data, etc. So authentication is really the next step for action configuration. So this ensures that your interactions between your GPT and the external services are secure. So if you have, for example, for your service, for your company, you have an API key that's required from the user, or you have an OAuth, you have different options for the authentication there that allows the user to specifically authenticate themselves and make the bridge between that. So these are the features that you have. So you can have no authentication for services that don't need any secure access. You can have the API key, which is really straightforward method of just including a secret key that has in the request for the query parameters. You have the OAuth, which is for more robust authentications that require for permissions and user consent, etc. And each method has its own use cases and security considerations. But for instance, like an API key might suffice for just like a simple weather app, weather data retrieval, but an OAuth would be, really for services that handle sensitive personal data, obviously like emails or personal accounts, obviously. And by meticulously kind of configuring these settings, you can get your GPT to have a capability to perform tasks that on various platforms, any platform that can take a request, making it a really versatile tool that really extends beyond just simple conversation. And just before we get into our demo here, it's important to explain kind of like the difference between the custom GPTs and the Assistance API, right? So I did a webinar a couple weeks or months ago, actually, at this point about the Assistance API and how that works. So the Assistance API can be directly integrated into a product or service, and it kind of allows GPTs to, automate different things directly in your into your code base, into your service, whatever you're doing. The difference really lies in, where they're located, right? So the GPTs, these custom GPTs that are connected to your service, is located directly in ChatGPT. And the whole benefit of this is because, there's hundreds of millions of users already on ChatGPT every day. And if it's located directly on ChatGPT, then they can super easily access it through, the GPT store, and makes it really easy for them, you to get in front of a user with a really cool use case with your specific service instead of the user coming to you, because they're already on the ChatGPT platform, and you can kind of think about it like, that there's an app store for Android and Apple, and you go to the app store to kind of download your service, but it kind of allows them to, find your service directly from there, and connect it, from like that. And and the Assistance API can be integrated directly into the product or service, bringing the functionality of GPT to your service instead. So the user interface here is built into ChatGPT, and it's the Assistance API. And the top, I know it says no code for GPTs, and that's true. You can make a GPT without any code, but especially if you want to be doing these actions, you might need a little bit of code here and there to, especially just, just to create a request or understand how to use the open API and stuff like that. But it's definitely way less code, I would say. And shareability, so it's built in directly to GPT, so people can directly share these GPTs to other people. But then the Assistance API is there's no built-in shareability. Hosting is completely done by OpenAI, which is great for GPTs. And for assistants, OpenAI does not host the assistants, right? And so they have built-in tools for the GPTs, such as browsing, DALL-E, code interpreter, retrieval, and custom actions. And for the Assistance API, you have, code, interpreter, retrieval, and function calling. Those are kind of the differences between these pretty similar things, but different in a lot of ways. So let's get into our demo here, which is called creating a custom GPT with actions. And what we're doing specifically is creating a custom news GPT. And in this demonstration, we'll really create a specialized GPT tailored towards news delivery. And we'll start off by filling out the basic fields on the right. As we can see, we assign the name news GPT to identify the purpose of your custom model. And so the description you need to really provide a clear description. So for example, NewsGPT is a service powered by GPT technology designed to deliver real-time news updates. It integrates with the News API, which is an API in Python. I'll get into that a little bit later. That to source the latest information, applying intelligent filters to customize news delivery based on user preferences. So instructions, this kind of details how to interact with a news GPT. So it kind of so this is kind of the example I used here in this example. So input your topic of interest, and news GPT will retrieve current news articles. It offers concise summaries of full articles as per request, etc. And conversation starters. So these are just prompts that guide the user to how to start. So what is the latest on the Super Bowl? Can you give me an updates on today's technology news? Again, remember, clarity is really key here. The name should kind of reflect the GPT's purpose, because users are going to be searching for this if they have a specific use case for your service. The description should really outline its function, and the instruction should guide user interaction, and conversations should, kick start the GPT's utility effectively. So developing a custom action for your GPT involves creating a structured definition or schema that really outlines the interaction with web services. So the schema really defines the the endpoint URLs, the required request method, get for retrieving data, post for sending data, and then expected parameters. So the schema is really essential. It's the contract that specifies how GPT communicates with an external API. For example, the GET request for a news API might require, parameters such as a category, date, keywords. Similarly, a post request to a weather service might require sending location data and retrieving the current weather conditions in response. And after defining the schema, you need to set the authentication method to really ensure that the communication with the server. So this could range from no authentication for public APIs to more secure methods like OAuth for private data access that we talked about a little bit earlier. And then once this is configured, the custom action allows the GPT to fetch and send data on command and provides really enhanced interaction capabilities that are integral to services like this thing that I created, News GPT, or any other custom GPT that you'd be creating, which might need real-time data to generate up-to-date responses. So this is kind of how I'm creating the get news function. So I'll be going over the full code base in a little bit, but this is the get news function that I created. And so basically what it's going to do here is essentially it's using the news API for Python, and so it's going to be using actually I should not have the API key there, but it is being used using the API key to actually do a query and then a page size and a language. So those are the three parameters there: query, page size, language. And we have the URL, so newsapi.org/everything. So from there, we can actually take the query, the page size, and the language, an API key to really take those parameters and put in a response. And we're doing a get response to the URL and the parameters, and then returning that response, which will in turn return it back to GPT. And we'll see how we can do that directly through this integration. So when deploying your app, you need to host it on a service like and Grok, or anything that can simplify the process, especially for this demonstration purposes. You could use any platform, but for this demo, we're going with this. After setting up your service or anything similar to ngrok, it's really crucial to configure the middleware of your application, to handle cross-origin requests. This is often necessarily when we're doing something where it requires OpenAI to take requests directly from our service here, or our server here. So that's what we're doing. Essentially, this in the Fast API application, this involves updating the CORS, which stands for cross-origin resource sharing settings. So you'll use the CORS middleware, specifying the allow origin parameter to include the origins that are allowed to access your application. In this case, we're saying chat to openai.com, which is essential because you want to have your custom GPTs, which is hosted on that website, to access it from there. Additionally, you can set the allow methods to accept all standard HTTP methods and allow headers to accept all headers. The allow credentials parameter should be set to true and allow all the transmission of cookies or authorization headers between the front end and the back end. And this configuration is crucial for ensuring your app can communicate with the specified services without running into any CORS errors, which are really common, security safeguards in web browsers nowadays. So to facilitate the API integration and ensure seamless interaction between client applications and your server, you must generate an OpenAPI schema. So schema serves as a formal specification of the API's interface. This kind of really details the available endpoints, the structure of the requests, and the responses. So in the info section, you'll be doing providing metadata about the API, such as the title and version. The servers array kind of specifies the base URL of the API that the clients need to connect to. The paths object listing, puts the available paths or endpoints of the HTTP methods, such as get, post, put, delete, that could be used within them. And for each endpoint, you can define, the summary, the operation ID. These are just standard things that you would define within a OpenAI schema. And After generating your OpenAI schema, the next step is to integrate it directly into the GPT creator on the ChatGPT website. So you'll paste the schema into the custom action section. This input enables the platform to really understand the API you're interfacing with, and including its endpoints and structure of the requests and responses. So once the schema is pasted, the GPT creator will automatically parse it, and display the methods and routes that have been defined. These methods kind of correspond to the actions of the GPT and will be, able to perform through the API. The interface kind of provides a practical way of ensuring your schemas correctly implemented by allowing you to test the actions directly with the ChatGPT interface. And this testing is kind of essential. It allows you to troubleshoot and confirm that the API interactions are working as intended before deploying the GPT for live interactions on the GPT store, for example. And this really hands-on testing is kind of crucial in this schema here when in this actions interface on ChatGPT's website, and it really allows that your custom GPT can effectively communicate with external APIs, providing a seamless user experience, right? And so integration with database is another really cool feature that you could do with this type of technology. So integrating custom GPTs with databases such as SingleStore really revolutionized the way that one can really interact with data. So for example, you're a developer and you just want, or you're a user, right? And you want to allow users to query a database using conversational language instead of, SQL or something where it's a little harder to get started with. And just, like conversing with a database with pure English is kind of like what's happening here. So here's kind of like a high level overview of how this is working. So you have like a natural languages understanding from the GPT model that processes the user's prompt, understands the intent and the specific data points being requested, and then the understood intent is kind of translated into a structured query such as SQL, and then this step involves mapping the conversational elements to the database, fields, operations, and conditions. And the translated query is executed against SingleStore's database, and the database, processes the SQL query and retrieves the relevant data based on the original query, and then it formats the data from the database. The database is going to be returning not in a readable format, or maybe some readable format, but maybe something where it's like not for a specific user. You don't want to be giving them in that format. So the GPT kind of model kind of structures the data into something readable, structured output that it's kind of really easy to read and understand. And the response generation, finally, the GPT model kind of generates a response that includes all this data in a conversational manner, as you can see in the example. And this process is really seamless, makes it feel as the one is having like a direct conversation with a database. It's kind of like you're talking to a database in like pure English. Users can make complex queries like asking for like 3 most expensive books um, on history sorted by title, and you can see that example here. Retrieve like structured and stored list as if they're like written a SQL query, but without having to need like the technical know-how of how to like explore a database, right? And this integration is really powered by plugins or custom like built-in middleware that understand the capabilities of the schema of the database and can interpret the map and map like natural language to precise commands. This is where like the technology is really super useful because you have technology like SingleStore or any of these databases, and it's very difficult to have users directly interact with it, and using something large language model like GPT, and that's what the whole idea of these GPTs allow you to do is connect these technologies that you have directly with GPT and create a plugin or put it on the GPT store. And the result is kind of like a really powerful tool. In this case, kind of like democratized data access, allowing users to make decisions on insights and really understand the databases with kind of simple English. So now we'll go into kind of like a code walkthrough. And so let me pull up the code really quickly. Okay. So here is the code base, and so essentially what we're doing here is we kind of already saw like the get news method, right? It does like a post request in this case for the news, and it's getting this the different queries and the page size and the language, and then taking this URL here and creating this response, right? Returning a response. This is kind of like the middleware where it allows the origins from like ChatGPT, origins from a specific ngrok server, and I can show you how the ngrok server is working. So the first thing you would want to do is run this code, set up the server using Fast API, which is a really simple way to set up a quick Python server. And you can access these, requests directly from the server by, first of all, we can get get the URL of the server, so it's locally hosted on my computer. Then we can use like a tool like Insomnia or any place where you can even use like a curl or anything that you can actually get these post and get requests from, and display in a simple manner. So you put in your current you would put in your current local host, and then you would do like slash the routing that we select. So we have slash API slash news, and you would send it, and you can get back based on the specified queries. So for example, we have Super Bowl here, and we got back some news about the Super Bowl directly from this API. That's how to get the news directly from the API using the requests. And then what's really cool here is we have our open API.json file. And this kind of specifies everything that I was explaining a little bit earlier of how the requests work. And this kind of explains directly to OpenAI, the GPT model, how to get the data directly from your API, or directly how to make the connection between your API and GPT. And so the thing is that you can be hosting it directly on your computer. You would have to use some sort of hosting service. So just for simplicity and demonstrating techniques, I'm using ngrok. And basically you can set up the ngrok. It's pretty easy to set up. Just create an account and set it up in your terminal. And you can actually now have this address that you can just use directly for GPT, right? So instead of using my local address, I'll be using this ngrok address, and then you can set up the routing, and I believe it was slash API slash news, send request, and you get all these different news articles directly from here, right? Oops. Okay. And then obviously a lot of Taylor Swift stuff from the Super Bowl, but that now from here, what can we do? So now we have this specific place where it's getting these requests from the server that's being hosted on, and we have our open API.json file for our schema that we put directly into OpenAI when we're creating our custom GPT. So what we do is we'd go back into our platform here, and here's kind of how this looks like. So once you have the premium subscription, you can actually see these custom GPTs. And what we're really seeing here is you can create a new GPT. These are the ones that you have access to that you've already created. And if you click on new GPT, that's kind of where we started. You can directly interface with this. You can, tell the GPT builder how you want to build it. But what we're going to do is we obviously on the configure tab, you can do the same thing, but it's a lot easier. You can put in the name, description, instructions, and our conversation starters. You can upload files for knowledge if there's specific files that you would want it directly to know without having to call an API. Capabilities, if you want web browsing off, code interpreter, etc. If you're trying to do something with code. And then you have your actions down here. So if you click on this, you can have multiple actions actually. But for now, we're using this specific action for our ngrok server. And so what's happening here is we put in our schema that we created from this open API.json that contains our URL for ngrok that we use from here to create this request. And essentially with this, all we can do now is we can just, we can test this out, right? So if we test this out and it's able to access, our API, call the get method, get the get news method directly from here, it successfully worked, and now we've connected our custom GPT to our custom app that we've created. So if we test this out, so as you can see here, it's calling HTTP endpoint. So we're going to confirm. And as you can see here, let's look at kind of what the query was. So the query here was technology. We wanted a page size of 5 and the language of English. And you can see the actual, HTTP request. So we had a post request with a path with API/news, and all this is specified in our schema and kind of represents how we can tell ChatGPT, this custom GPT, how to make these requests. And these are the requests, and it created this kind of response here. Um, and yeah, I think this is a pretty good stopping space. And obviously, you can also that's where. So if you want to actually change that way that the user interacts with the GPT, right? Instead of saying like this, you don't want your custom user or your users to be making this response, saying this to the GPT. That would obviously be kind of bad because it's not intuitive, right? You don't want this random server to be part of like the user's experience. You want them to say, give me the latest news on the Super Bowl, for example. So then that's where you would go to your instructions, description, everything here, to kind of specify how that works, how that connects directly to your action, and facilitates the whole process of taking a user's query and then using the schema to connect directly to your app, and then create that full cycle of development. So where the user can actually do like a custom query and then connects directly to your external app using the schema. I think, Matt, we can take questions.
Okay, awesome. As mentioned during the outset, feel free to keep the questions coming throughout the session. We'll try to get to as many as we can, and we will email. We will have a 100% response rate. So Ayush, I see a pretty cool question here from Francois. It's about the new GPT from IKEA, which I had never seen before, but I clicked on the link and it looks like IKEA is, you can browse their catalog and their offering and talk to the LLM about, and presumably like help get I don't know, design or furniture ideas. And Francois is saying, I'm curious about your opinion in the building methods employed. I don't know if you have any. They must. I assume they're using some sort of database and functions. But curious your thoughts, Ayush, when you see this.
Yeah, so I can actually pull up here. So yeah, it seems like they have something very similar to what we're building, a custom GPT that allows you to, access stuff from IKEA specifically. So I'm sure it's using a similar process to communicate directly with the IKEA website to their servers to get information from there, and then respond to users' queries to get requests. So let's see like what it can do. I haven't seen this one before specifically, so we can see like what it's specified it actually can do. So okay, so it can check if a specific IKEA product is available. Um, so yeah, this seems like it's directly connecting with IKEA's entire database, maybe their entire API to it's using that by it's using that the schema that we kind of saw before to create those requests directly to their database, to their servers to get store information, product recommendations, stuff like that. That's how you can take your specific company and connect, and that's kind of like what's happening with a lot of these companies now. They're creating custom GPTs that connect directly from their API directly back to these custom GPTs that users can access on ChatGPT directly.
Awesome. I am going to, for the next question, I'm going to grab Tristan's here, which I had the same question. So I'm curious what you say, Ayush. Tristan says, I noticed that you didn't add web browser functionality. Is that because it will use it instead of the custom function?
So I think he means by web browser functionality. So yeah, so I think what he means by that is I didn't like add like functionality for um you know adding my request directly on like a web browser, which I'm not really sure what the question is. Like I think I think like what I can explain now is like kind of the difference between the GPTs and the assistants. So the GPTs is where you're using the interface directly on OpenAI's platform on ChatGPT and connecting your API there. Then there's assistants, which where you can use their API and connect it directly back to your platform. So I'm not sure what you mean by any web browser functionality. Um, Maybe that was a different spot, but yeah,
Well, I assume, and forgive me, maybe I missed during your demo, Ayush, but I know when I've built GPTs in the past, there's like a checkbox for whether you want it to be able to browse the web. And
oh,
sometimes
that's okay. Okay, I
yeah,
understand. Oh yeah,
go
so
ahead.
okay, I understand. So when I was okay, yeah, when I was creating my GPT, I didn't include web browser. Yeah, I was just like turning it off and on, just like kind of demonstrate. You can use web browser functionality. It doesn't really matter. In this case, I didn't want to use it because like the function of my kind of demo here was to get the news. And I was using a separate API to get the news, and I didn't want to get the news directly from their Bing, because what they would do if you have like web browser functionalities, they'll like search the web directly within there, and they wouldn't really need to use like my API. And this was just a simple demo, and that's why I just turned it off for this specific use case.
Makes sense. And I've done the same thing. Like if I don't want it introduced, it's like a wild card, it
Yeah,
brings in random information from the internet.
yeah,
And sometimes I don't want that, I want it to
exactly. Yeah.
focus on my data or information. So, okay, here's a question uh, about what makes GPTs unique in your opinion. I've thought about this a lot myself, and my personal answer is like the data. I don't think that people can make GPTs anymore that will be unique unless they have some proprietary, data that's behind it. Because I just feel like so many of these GPTs could be easily reverse engineered or like duplicated or whatever. But that's just my own personal thinking. I'm kind of curious what you say, Ayush.
Yeah, definitely. Like the ability for it to connect directly with, any database, any specific server that you have, is really unique in the sense that it's kind of similar to the Assistance API, where it's like you can use the GPT technology, but with these GPTs, like it's hosted directly on OpenAI. It's not like the user has to go to your website or anything. They're already using ChatGPT. They just use your specific plugin, your specific GPT, and then access the data directly from there. And yeah, it's mainly the data aspect of it that really makes it unique.
Awesome. I see this question here from SJ. I've got a question for you about connecting SingleStore from a custom GPT. So there's no LangChain approach. I don't think that's right. We've done a couple webinars on LangChain, and I think we have like a connector. I'm going to put that in the or I'm going to put one of our recent guides on that in the chat. I'm trying to remember, Ayush, have any of your webinars used LangChain?
Yeah, I've used LangChain directly with SingleStore and many of the webinars, so it should be there. If you search up like SingleStore LangChain like documentation, you should be able to find it pretty easily.
Awesome. Let's see. We can probably do one more question before we do the AirPods winner. Um, Unless you have one yourself, I think I'd probably grab this one that says, it's from Sebastian. Can I create actions where I call Lambda functions and API functions to have him interacting with external APIs and external system Lambdas?
So yeah, any function that you have like accessible within your server, or anywhere, any function you have within your server, right? That you can do a get or post request to, you should be able to access pretty easily with specifying the schema that specific way. And the schema, if you want to learn more about the how to specify like different parameters, if you're doing something with Lambda, and the schema is you can go to Open API, not to be confused with OpenAI, very similar name, and then see like how the Open API is structured. There's many different ways to like specify various like parameters, and I'm sure there's definitely a way to do that.
Awesome. Okay, I think we're at time here. So first of all, as I mentioned in the intro, on Wednesday, we're going to be doing another really cool webinar, how to build a no-code stock market analyzer agent with LLM calling. It's a really cool demo. I think it's like kind of the future of ChatGPT. It's got like agent capabilities that can go browse the internet and take actions on your behalf. Highly recommend you check it out. I put the RSVP link in the chat. Hope to see you there. And then the announcement you've been waiting for. Today's AirPods go to Anu Agarwal, the Deputy Director of Gen AI at PepsiCo. What a cool job. Congrats, Anu, and thank you for joining. If that's not you, don't give up. We're going to announce one more AirPods winner by the end of the day to someone who has tried Ayush's demo. So put the GitHub link into the chat. We're going to be sending that out via email as well, along with the recording of this session. So give it a try it out. Again, you can use the free tier. Very easy to sign up and give it a try, and good luck. Maybe you'll be the next AirPods winner. Thank you, Ayush, for an awesome presentation and demo. And then thank you to our audience for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you.